I am kind of like you, where I had a little social anxiety, and this whole situation forces me out of it a little bit. Like my daughter's her oh my gosh, what's the word? I don't know. Her arm doctor. I can't think of the actual technical name, but
I
her
can't help
nurse
you with
had.
that one. I know.
I know,
I'm
like
like,
I
I remembered optometrist earlier today
yeah,
talking to
that's a
someone
good
about
one.
eyes, and I was like, I remember that one.
Yeah,
At least I hope it's optometrist.
yeah. Or
Okay,
ophthalmologist. There's two. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know a bunch of
No,
doctors. But yes, arm doctor. We can go
arm
with that.
doctor. I know. I can't think of them right now. But her nurse had limb differences, so I was like, "Hey, you're beautiful. Would you be my model? This is what I'm doing." And she was one of my favorite models.
Hello and welcome to episode 242 of the Wisdom and the Tangents podcast. I am your host, John Mansfield, and today I have a great guest. If you're new around here, or even if you're old and need reminding, this is a podcast for photographers and creative entrepreneurs. This is a place where you can build your business, you can grow your community, and create the lifestyle you've always dreamed of. I have photographers, other experts, and creative entrepreneurs come on and share their experience. I share my experience and expertise with y'all. And we find some little nuggets of wisdom throughout the way. And today, my guest is Kellie Hetler. She is a wedding photographer based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, and it's actually kind of funny the date that this is going to be released, or I guess that you're listening to this now. She was just speaking at the Hybrid Collective where we first met, and we talk about that a little bit in the episode. And yes, we did get to see each other and hang out, so that was fun. But that was just happening last week. And then this week, as you're listening, she is at Reset Conference where she's doing a style shoot there. So you may have just seen or will be seeing Kellie this week or last week. I know that's a confusing sentence, but maybe you've seen her around. Uh, anyway, I thought that was fun. That probably wasn't, and it was just confusing. So let's get into my conversation with Kellie Hetler. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And I'm really excited about this topic too. I think this is something whenever we met, did we meet at this last hybrid in 2024?
I was trying to think of where it was because you meet so many people, and it feels like we're all in the same groups,
Yeah.
but like which one was it? But I'm pretty sure it was last hybrid.
Okay. That's what
Yeah.
I was thinking too, because I was trying to picture the room,
The
because
room.
that's where like visual aids
Yeah.
is what helps me like
Yeah.
narrow down where I meet people. I'm like, I'm pretty sure
Mhm.
we were like in Leila Amati's class
Okay. Yeah,
and
that
in
could be
that
it.
little cabin.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, whenever we started talking about disabilities in the wedding industry and how that's just like a very overlooked part of the industry,
Mhm.
I was like, oh yeah, 100%. Like that is not even something that I had on my long list of
Right.
topics to eventually get to on this podcast. So I'm really
Mhm.
excited to chat about that. And before we do, I wanted to get a little background about you, where you're based, and what you do. Could you share that with the listeners?
Sure. Yeah. I am a portrait and wedding photographer. I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan area, so it's like 10 degrees right now, which I can't wait. I'm going back to hybrid next week in California, so really counting down the
Oh,
days for that.
it's going to be nice. It has been like, it's not been 10 degrees here in Texas, but it has been pretty cold and
Yeah.
rainy. And sunny San Diego sounds amazing right now.
Are you going this year?
I am, yeah.
Oh, good. Awesome. So we'll see you again.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I have two daughters. One is 14 and one is 9. My 9-year-old has multiple disabilities. So that's kind of where the disability entered into my life. Um, and then I naturally became an advocate just by being a mother to someone that has disabilities.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years, I started integrating that into my business just because I saw the need was there. So kind of pulled some personal life into business and found that, well, it was really, really needed. So it kind of just made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean that really does make sense, and especially like
Hmm.
pulling personal life into business. I feel like a lot of people that like start movements or start change in an industry, it usually comes from like, this is my personal life. This is
Hmm.
what I live here, and I
Yep.
want to bring everyone in and like make this a little like more well known. And I know that and we'll get into this of just like
Hmm.
how some of the listeners might be feeling right now is just like, I don't even know, like, how do I integrate
Hmm.
like people with disabilities into, like, how do I market to them? Do I, like, if I've never photographed anyone with a disability, like, how do I do that?
Hmm.
And I don't know, I just love that you were just like, this is something in my personal life and something that I
Hmm.
see that is lacking in the wedding industry itself. I
Hmm.
can be the one, instead of just being like, man, I wish that people would just like
Hmm.
photograph more people with disabilities, or that publications would publish, a bride in a wheelchair or something, rather than just the same old kind of couples.
Yeah. Well, and to be completely honest, before I had my daughter, I had no experience myself with people that had any disabilities. So it was new to me too. So I kind of feel like if I can do it, you can do it too. It's just I'm maybe a little bolder in it because I want the wedding industry ready for Gabby.
Yeah,
But she's only 9, but it takes a long time to make a change. So,
it really does.
um, yeah, I mean, and I'm only one person, so the more help, the better. Um, but yeah, it's kind of just turned into almost a whole second business for me, where I'm doing my first business, making my income, but that's kind of paying for this other business or the passion of mine. So it's kind of just it's turned into a lot, which I love, especially when it's your passion and for your child too. It really drives it and
Yeah.
motivates you. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that too. And can you give us a little like, kind of, I know we talked about how like, uh, you kind of took your personal experience and then started sharing that and moving that into the wedding industry. How did that begin? What did that look like? What were like the early steps of all that process?
Yeah, so probably 2 years ago, I don't know. Time kind of is just a blur, so it's hard to.
Seriously.
I don't know. I don't know how my young oldest is
Sometime in the
14.
2020s.
Yeah, that's for real. I kind of did some research, seeing what was out there for people with disabilities in the wedding industry, seeing like what hashtags there were, what like blogs I could pull up, things like that. And there was really nothing. There was maybe a few articles, like on the Knot, that were kind of poorly done from 15 years ago, or
Hmm.
just things like that. There were no hashtags, hardly anything on Pinterest. And if there were, they were just kind of, not great because they're just so sparse, and there's maybe one or two here or there, but there's so many people that are disabled and with so many different disabilities that I kind of thought to myself, how are these people going to plan their weddings if they can't envision what they'll look like in their weddings? And that's kind of what started me on that path. So I started just doing all of my styled shoots that I would regularly do, and just decided I was only going to do them with models that have disabilities. Um, and so that's just kind of where I started. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. Um, I
Yeah.
think I don't even know, with hybrid, and then directly from hybrid, I'm flying to Florida to do another conference. And within that time, we're doing 4 shoots with tons of models coming from all over, just to create tons of content, because that's a huge thing that I think is lacking, is content that with the representation for these different disabilities and differences.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you said earlier, of just like before your daughter was born, you were also like where
Yeah.
most of the listeners are, just like, oh yeah, I didn't think about this. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. I don't see people with disabilities
Right.
in the wedding industry, I don't see blogs of like, hey, if you're in a wheelchair, these are some great gowns that you can have that aren't gonna like, they're not super long, they're not gonna get caught in the wheel, you're not gonna run over them or anything, and this is gonna
Mm-hmm.
like, it's gonna fit well to where you can sit down, and
Mm-hmm.
or even people who you know maybe you can't stand for very long, and it's like, these are some gowns that you can sit down.
Right.
This is because so many of my brides are just like, well, I'm not going to be sitting for the rest of the night because I can't in this dress. I'm like,
It's so true.
yeah, no, I get it. But like
Mm-hmm.
having that lack of education out there, lack of
Mm-hmm.
resources, because you think about those couples that are just like, okay, we're excited, we're engaged, we're planning the
Mm-hmm.
wedding, and all of these photos and all of these ideas are great for everyone else, but like, this isn't going to work because of this, or this thing
Mm-hmm.
that I'm looking at won't be accessible or whatever. And just like being able to see that void and being like, okay, I'm gonna not only just, if I book someone who does have a disability, then I'll like blog about it and put it on Pinterest, but like
Mm-hmm.
actively, like you were saying, like all of your styled shoots that you were doing, just I'm going to actively work on being more inclusive in those shoots. So
Yeah. And I had lunch with a photographer who was a speaker at a conference, and she was pretty well known. And she told me that she had a groomsman in a wheelchair, and when she started to pose the group, she just had no idea what to do. And I just kind of felt like, wow, I was really kind of taken aback by that and was surprised because she was really well known, really respected, really high up in her career. And I was just surprised that you would not know what to do with that because it's basically just someone seated.
right.
So I think the wheelchair was just scary to someone, maybe, because they just didn't know they haven't seen that much before, or they haven't had any experience with that. So I guess almost like desensitizing people to it a little bit, getting them used to it a little more, seeing it more, and not being such an outlier or um, so different in the wedding industry because really so many people use wheelchairs, so many people use medical devices and assistive devices in their daily lives. um, so it's nothing that we should really be that surprised by.
Right. Yeah. And for those of us who like have that privilege of like never having to have been in a
Mhm.
wheelchair or had
Yeah,
any sort of like medical assistance,
right.
um, it's like, oh yeah, I haven't been around that. And
Right.
it's almost like that feeling of like, oh, okay, like what have I been doing that I have
Hmm.
not even like brought anyone into my circle.
Hmm.
That's like, we have nephews with Down syndrome and
Hmm.
autism, and talking to other people who just like not been around that, they're
Hmm.
just like, oh, I don't really know how to talk to a kid with Down syndrome, like you talk to any other
Just talk
kid,
to them. Yeah. Just talk.
and yeah, just talk to him.
Hmm.
And like, I think that is one of the biggest things. Like you were saying, like she was so just like, I don't know what to do with someone in a wheelchair, and it's like,
Yep.
they are sitting. It's like
Hmm.
you have someone sitting. Just pose them like it's someone sitting, and
Yeah.
like, I think we get into our heads too much of like,
Right.
oh, I don't really know what to do. If I put him here, is it going to be like too in front or what, or if would it look
Hmm.
weird on the end? And like, I don't know. And like, you get in your head a little bit too much. So I'm glad
Hmm.
that you're like out there and sharing more and just being like, yeah, you can just post them like they're seated. It's
Right.
okay.
Yeah, yeah, it is totally okay. And just what I found, I did a lot of research for my class that I'm teaching at hybrid, and I asked because I wanted it not to be coming from me because I don't live it and I don't experience all of those situations. So I kind of wanted just to be the vessel and the person that connected the two groups together. So I asked a lot of questions to these different groups, not just people that are wheelchair users, but also people that are deaf, people that have limb differences, all different kind of groups that I could think of. But again, I don't know everything about disability.
Mhm.
I just have a heart for it, which is a good start, right? So, um, and a lot of them, most of them said they just want to be treated like a human. They just want to be included. They don't want to be not talked to because people don't know how to talk to them. They don't want to be excluded because people don't know what to do with them. And that's kind of along the same lines as life with my daughter. Like when we're at the grocery store, we can hear people shushing or talking and telling their kids, "No, don't look at her, don't talk to her," because my daughter has limb differences. So
Mm.
her arms are both shorter than a typical length, and we're like, just tell your kids to come say hi. Like we don't want you telling your kids to not talk to her, or not because they think it's rude, but really you're teaching your child to exclude her.
Yeah. Like,
And
oh no, she's an outcast. We
right,
don't talk to her, don't look at her, let's move this other way. And it's like not
right.
even thinking about her as a person
Hmm.
and how that would feel if everyone just is just like, oh, and then turns and
Right.
like completely avoids you all the time.
Yeah, just gather a little bit of bravery and come say hi and ask her a question. Even ask her like about her arms or her. My daughter's also deaf, so ask her about her cochlear implant or something. Like she would love to talk about it, and so would we. And making her feel special and known or seen. It's those things go a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like that is the heart of so many different things. So many like different ways of including people and being more
Hmm.
inclusive in just like in general.
Yeah.
But like that's the heart of it is everyone wants to be seen. Just
Right.
allow them to be seen. Be the person that sees them. And
Hmm.
I also like I have pretty. It's not as bad now. I'm growing out of it, but I had really bad social anxiety like
Hmm.
as a kid and into
Hmm.
my 20s, and would just be like, oh well, I can't go talk to that person. What would they think if
Hmm.
maybe this is offensive if I say this? And then I would just like stand in the corner and do nothing.
Hmm.
And my wife is the polar opposite, where
Yeah.
she is just like, oh hey, you look a little bit different than me, tell me about your story, I would love to hear. And I'm just like, that has been like huge inspiration for me of
Hmm.
just like, yeah, that little bit of bravery, it just takes a little bit. And yeah, maybe you
Hmm.
might catch someone on a bad day where they're like, I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about this, thanks, but I don't want to talk, and that is okay.
Yeah. That
And
is totally okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, not everybody will have a good reaction, but that's just kind of life anyways. It doesn't even matter if they have a disability
right.
or a difference or anything. That's just people in general. So,
I have seen people with cool t-shirts and I'm like, hey, I like your shirt, and they're just like dead-eyed, straight ahead, focused on what they're doing. I'm like,
yeah.
all right,
Yeah.
good talk.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, people are people no matter what their situation is. You'll find ones that want to chat all day that you might didn't mean to talk to that long, and some that want nothing to do with it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as your intent is good, I think most people will see your heart in that.
Yeah, I think that's what it is it's your intent. Uh
Mhm.
and yeah, I think that's exactly right. Kids, I'm going to tell you an incredible story. A story about how I met your mother. And I'll tell it in less than 9 years. Years ago, I used to spend all of my time editing photos and straightening and cropping and color grading all of my friends thought I was antisocial, but really, I was just overworked. Then I met Imagine AI. Imagine AI looks at the steps that you take from your raw images to your final products, and then they replicate that so everything looks like your edits. And the best part is that they learn more and more and get better after every single photo shoot. Since I've been using Imagine AI, it has saved me over 200 hours of editing time that I could spend on other things like going to Super Bowl parties and meeting your mom. So if you want some extra time in your life, go to allheartphoto.com/AI and get your first 1,500 images edited for free. That's allheartphoto.com/AI and get back your time. See how I didn't fixate on your Aunt Robin? This is how you tell a story. Now back to the show. For those who are just like, okay, this sounds great. I really want to do this. I want to be more inclusive to those who have disabilities. How do I do that in like my photography business without, if you have nothing in your portfolio at all, because just that hasn't happened to come about through, just
Yeah.
a natural, what is it, word of mouth, there it is.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
people coming in, like
Mhm.
what are some steps you think would be good for someone to take to start to have that in their portfolio, start to have that be more inclusive in their business?
Yeah. So well, I am kind of like you, where I had a little social anxiety, and this whole situation forces me out of it a little bit. Like my daughter's her oh my gosh, what's the word? I don't know. Her arm doctor. I can't think of the actual technical name, but
I
her
can't help
nurse
you with
had.
that one. I know.
I don't
I'm
like.
like,
I
I remembered optometrist earlier today
Yeah,
talking to
that's a
someone
good
about
one.
eyes, and I was like, I remember that one.
Yeah,
At least I hope it's optometrist.
yeah. Or
Okay,
ophthalmologist. There's two. Yeah,
okay, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, I don't know a bunch of
No,
doctors, but yes, arm doctor. We can go
arm
with that.
doctor. I know. I can't think of him right now. But her nurse had limb differences, so I was like, "Hey, you're beautiful. Would you be my model? This is what I'm doing." And she was one of my favorite models. And now she's actually getting married, and maybe I'll do her wedding. So it's kind of funny how it all works out. But
Yeah,
so getting brave and asking people if they'd want to model it, that's one thing. You never know what they're going to say, but they also might get behind it as well. And then also being willing to like have interpreters and things there if needed. That's something I've started offering if someone needs it. And then I also, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. Oh, asking styled shoots, the hosts, to include diverse models, because I've been starting to ask for those, and I think they don't realize people would want that, and they
mm,
won't include it if they don't know people want it. So if I'm the only one asking, they're going to be like, well, yeah, that's your mission, and no one else wants it.
yeah,
But if a lot of people are asking for it, they might be like, okay, this makes sense. A lot of people are asking for it. We can start including it. And I have to say, I'm hosting a styled shoot coming up, and my tickets almost sold out the day they went on sale. So I know the content is wanted, and I know it's needed. I think people just need to start asking for it and make it known that it's wanted.
yeah.
So I think those are some really helpful ways to at least jump in at least.
Yeah, I think that's great. I love the asking for it whenever you're going
Mm-hmm.
to styled shoots, or
Mm-hmm.
like you've signed up for a workshop or something that's like over 3 or 4 days, and you're like, oh, we're gonna have multiple style shoots. I would love for that to be diverse,
Mm-hmm.
because not every person who's putting together a styled shoot thinks of that,
Right.
and like. Honestly, I also didn't the first styled shoot that I put together because I was just like, these are model friends that I know, and
Mm-hmm.
they said that they would do this for free. So I'm
Right.
just gonna
Right.
pay them with pizza afterwards,
Exactly.
and like that was my first styled shoot. And then after that, once I started teaching workshops, I was like, oh, like this would be a great time for people to have a more diverse portfolio. If they're like
Mm-hmm.
me, straight white dude in the South, like most of my couples, well, not anymore, but for the first like probably 5-7 years of my business, were straight white couples,
Yes.
and like that's all that I had in my portfolio, and that's all that
Mm-hmm.
I was really attracting, and like that is great if you're going to workshop or style shoot to
Mm-hmm.
just even ask like, hey, is there going to be any diversity in the models?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see this, uh,
Right.
and that might spark a little something in uh, the teacher, coordinator, whoever's putting it together. It's like, I hadn't thought about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
they will now.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like that also takes that little bit of bravery too.
Yep.
Of like, what if they say no? Then
Mm-hmm.
then it was going to be the same as it was before,
And then
and
they say no. I
they say
mean,
no. Yeah,
that's the worst that can happen, right?
exactly. Yeah, just like if you go over to someone to talk and then they're just like, I don't feel like talking today. That is the worst that could happen. Like
Right.
that's it. We're just back to okay. Well, we're back to our paths
Mm-hmm.
of life. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know for me, I'm in my head all the time, just like constant
Mm-hmm.
scenarios and just like this and that. And that little bit of bravery takes a lot. And it kind of
Mm-hmm.
takes like shutting off those scenarios for a minute and be like, let's just see what happens. I'm going
Yep.
to go in, like you said earlier, go in with good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
Like even putting together a styled shoot or asking a model to be um, part of your styled shoot,
Mm-hmm.
go to them with good intentions instead of like, hey, I know that you have a disability and I want to
Mm-hmm.
take photos of you. It's
Yeah.
like, I want to like celebrate you. I want you
Right.
to be seen in part
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah. You are beautiful. I would love to photograph you, and you would
Mhm.
make this experience so much richer for everyone involved, you know?
Yeah, man, just copy those words right there, Kelly. That's awesome. Yeah, everyone, just write that down. That is the perfect pitch. Mean it
Yeah.
whenever you say it.
Right.
But
You
yeah,
mean it for sure.
that is great. But yeah, I love the intentionality that you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about. Just being like reaching out to other people,
Mm-hmm.
um, and just being like a safe place to where
Mm-hmm.
people feel safe with you.
Yep.
Do you have any tips on like, is there like wording or verbiage or anything? I know like um, for like the LGBTQ couples, like it's, you don't want to have like just bride and groom on your website because it's like a
Mm-hmm.
clear like, oh okay, well you are not thinking of me.
Mm-hmm.
Is there verbiage that we could use on our website or social media or anything like that?
So I also asked this in the questionnaires and the surveying that I did because I feel like it's kind of based on the person, but
Hmm.
also as a community as a whole, you can kind of know what's good and what's not. I mean, there's words that you should definitely not say, and I think we know a lot of those. But like using the word disability, like that's not a bad word. And so that's kind of what I say for the whole group, for people that have disabilities as a whole. I use the word disability or disabilities or disabled. Um, but then when I'm talking like one on one with someone or about someone or writing about someone, if they were a model or a client of mine, that's when I start to ask like, what is their preference?
Mm,
What do they like to be referred as, or their difference referred to as? And a lot of people said just whatever their diagnosis was. If they have a limb difference, if they have autism or MS or whatever it may be. Wheelchair is also an acceptable way to say someone that uses a wheelchair. They can be a wheelchair user. And then just someone's deaf or hard of hearing. That's what it is. So let's call them deaf or hard of hearing. So there's so many different things and diagnoses and that you could go on all day, but I think you're pretty safe saying someone has a disability or is disabled, and then just going in down um, smaller once you get to work with an individual and asking them their preference.
hmm. Yeah. No, I love that. Just kind of like, yeah, this is like the medical diagnosis. Just say that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've got a limb difference. It is limb difference. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
say like, oh yeah, she had one arm that was shorter than the other one. It's just like we can just say limb difference, and
Yep.
it's not offensive. It is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what it is, and yeah, no, I think that's great. Uh,
Right. And in the end of the day, I mean, they know they have a limb difference, so it's not
right.
like it's obvious. You know what I mean? Like they don't want you to like beat around the bush or dance around the fact because it just makes it awkward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just, and they know if you, again, go in with good intent in your heart and knowing that you're trying your best, if they have a bad reaction, then that's just sometimes going to happen as well.
Mm-hmm.
So you, at the end of the day, you only can really do your best. So
Yeah. And again, comes down to intention and like
mhm,
the kindness in your voice and the way that you're expressing it
mhm,
of just like, hey, I want you to be seen. I want to
mhm,
represent you the best way that I can.
mhm.
How would you like me to talk about that? I think
Yeah.
that's great.
Mhm,
For those who are thinking like this sounds great, but like I don't know, kind of like the photographer that you had lunch with that was just like, I don't know how to pose someone in a wheelchair.
mhm,
If someone's thinking like, I don't know, like what do I do, most of my prompts are like, hey, grab each other's hand and run through this field,
mhm.
or like they're very like set for people who do not have disabilities at
Yeah.
all. What are some ways that maybe you can even start incorporating uh, uh, I don't know, poses and prompts that
Mhm.
aren't exclusive to certain people?
So if you're talking about for a wedding, I always say photograph them before the wedding. So
Mm,
just like you would for a couple with an engagement session, it's just gold to know your couple beforehand and see how they move, see what their limitations are in relation to their disability, and maybe they hardly have any. I mean, and sometimes even a disability may be visible or invisible. Like if they're if they are deaf, you might not even know that by looking at a photo, but it just might be come down to communication. So maybe you need to figure out how you guys communicate, and if you
yep.
need a little extra time to relay that communication, or just with your body language being able to communicate well. And that's something that Ashton at Hybrid taught and teaches really well. If you know, if you
Oh
met him at
yeah.
all.
Yeah, Ashton
um
Jean Pierre
yeah,
is
I
just,
love
yeah.
him.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
so great, so great.
yeah.
I was like, when I saw that he was going to be speaking, I don't know, I think a year or two ago was when I
Hmm.
was first introduced to him, and I was just like, oh, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. Like for those of you listening who don't know who Ashton is, uh, he is deaf and
Hmm.
has a translator, and like was so captivating in his speech and like talking about how to uh,
Hmm.
like use your body language, like you're just saying, of like reading body language and being able to express
Hmm.
things without like saying exactly what you need to do.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
I took
think.
his class
Oh,
last
nice,
year. Yeah.
nice.
And so you had to work with a model and you could not talk. So it was really, it was a little easier for me, I think, than other attendees because I have a child that's deaf.
Right.
But so I would almost try to like communicate with my hands to her, like with sign or something. But she didn't know that because she wasn't deaf. So I wasn't able to. So it was really good experiment, which that could be something that you do with just anyone, a friend or your spouse or whomever, your child, and try to just work with them and show them what you want them to do without words.
Yeah.
But that's good for hearing or non-hearing clients too. So
Oh, 100%. I don't know how many times, like, there's a really great place, like, near our downtown here. But there's like three different train tracks that
yeah.
are nearby. And for sure, if we're there for an
So,
hour, there's at least two trains coming past. So
mm-hmm.
whenever those horns are blaring, I'm just like mimicking what I
Yep.
want them to do, and like hand gestures and like
Yep.
facial features. And like, I'm just trying to show them what I
Mm-hmm.
want them to do. And it doesn't always land, but you know,
Right.
it's something that like that is really great
Mm-hmm.
to work on, to where you're
Mm-hmm.
not just like having to tell people or even like show up or pull up a photo of just like, so
Yeah.
this is what I want y'all to
Mm-hmm.
do, but be able to guide them without lining out every single thing.
Yeah. But if it doesn't land too, that's sometimes where that raw emotion and true expression comes out because it can be funny or awkward for a moment, so that makes you laugh, or
Hmm.
sometimes their interpretation of what you're doing is better than what you were telling him to do. So
Seriously, some of my favorite photos
yeah,
have been where I was like, that's not what I was asking you to do, but this is so
way
much better.
better. Yeah, same. Yeah. And so I kind of forget what we were even talking about. I think it was about like poses and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but just working with clients ahead of time is so helpful, especially if they're disabled or if they have a medical device, because if you, especially if you haven't used it before, so you can kind of know what to do with it. Like, especially on a wedding day, if they're if they use a wheelchair, I like to often use a veil because it kind of softens the wheelchair,
Mm-hmm.
because for a bride at least, because it's kind of a heavy piece of equipment, to add into the photo. I don't like to take things away unless they want them not in the photo. So I always ask their preference on that. I feel like most of the time they want some with their medical equipment and some without. So give them a lot of variety.
Yeah.
But quite often their medical device is an extension of themselves. So they still want that as a part of them. And then sometimes people, like, for example, if someone's in a power wheelchair, if they're quadriplegic or something, or they don't have much use of their arms or their legs, they can't they can't create the movement in photos like you would with you having a couple run through a field or whatever. So you kind of have to create the movement for them. And so I have some examples. I don't have them right here, but like we have a bride kind of against the wall, and she's sitting there with the flowers, and she looks beautiful, but I wanted some movement added in the photo. So I have my husband in the background just like throwing the veil back and forth, so it's moving nicely behind her, but she didn't have to create that movement, we did.
Yeah.
So just getting creative, because I mean, after all, that's what we are, right? We're creatives. We should be able to kind of think outside the box a little bit. And it's kind of fun, but I always try to have a little extra time too. Just sometimes your creativity gets halted on wedding days with your to-do list, and things like that. So
Seriously. Yeah. Yeah. The grind of like, okay, we have
yeah,
10 more minutes for this
yeah,
just like shrinks my creativity like
right.
so bad
Like,
where I'm just
there
like,
goes.
okay, I had ideas. Now I have nothing. And now we're short on time.
Right.
And yeah, like being able to just kind of step back and
Hmm.
and let the creativity go,
Hmm.
and just do some things. And like
Hmm.
I the last few years I have just been running with the idea of like even telling my couples like, hey, I want to try this thing. It may not work out,
Yeah.
it may be terrible and you may never see these images, but
Hmm.
I want to try this thing. If it works out, it's going to be really cool. And they're usually like, yeah, go for it.
Sure.
Let's
Hmm.
do this. It's going to be 2 minutes and
Hmm.
then we'll go on to something else. And a lot of times it works out and it's really cool. And
Hmm.
sometimes I'm like, they are never seeing these photos.
Delete.
These are
Yeah.
trash. I'm deleting them straight from my camera.
Yeah. I
uh,
always tell them too, I'm like, let's try some stuff. If you don't like it, we don't have to use it. Like,
yeah.
it's not going to hurt anything.
Yep.
Unless we're shooting film, then it hurts a little bit. But
Yeah. Hurts the pocketbook more than
yeah,
anything.
right.
Yeah. I just bought a bunch of film and I was like, well, that was a lot, but it's going to last me a few weeks. I
That's good. I love
I'm
film.
definitely still an overshooter with my film,
Same.
but it's great. It's so much fun.
It's fun.
Yeah. Okay, Kelly, this has been so great. I've loved all of this. Is there any like last steps or last notes that you want to leave for the listeners?
I mean, there's just so much. It's hard to say any last
I
thing.
have 12 last things to
Yeah,
say.
I have 8 more hours. Really just comes down to treating people, as you'd want to be treated. I mean, it's so cliche to say, but it's true. It's really
Mhm.
true. And just treating people with respect, even if they have physical differences. Maybe they're not the model you were envisioning, but that doesn't mean they're not worthy of being the center of a photo shoot, or
Yeah.
having beautiful portraits taken, or having their life celebrated too, because they're just as worthy and loved as the next person. So um, I just encourage you to step outside of your comfort zone a little bit and try some new things, even if it's something you've never done before. Um, yeah, just that's a big blanket wrap on all of it, I guess.
Yeah, really. I think it does kind of encapsulate everything that you talked
Mhm.
about of just like treat others how you would want to be treated. Like
Mhm.
show up with kindness, show up with true intentions when like talking to people and bringing in models for styled shoots and
Mhm.
even like at wedding expos, like there have been I have seen vendors that like there's a couple and one of them comes by and has a disability and that vendor's just kind of like, I'm just gonna not make eye contact because I don't really want them to come over here and
Mhm.
talk to me, and I'm just like staring at them like, make eye contact with me.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
yeah. Find me, find
yeah,
me.
come over here, I want to talk.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just like show up and
Mhm.
treat people like people.
Mhm.
um, and that bravery that you talked about earlier, like take that one brave step.
Yep.
That first time, who knows, it may not work. It,
Mhm.
it may be one of those that they're just like, yeah, no thanks, that doesn't sound like it for me. And just taking that not as rejection of like, well,
Mhm.
this is terrible, I'm never doing this again, but
Mhm.
just like, okay, well, this one didn't work out.
Yeah,
So
they say
yeah,
the most successful people has been told no so many times.
yeah.
So that's encouragement to me to keep trying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, awesome. Well, Kelly, before we get into like where people can find you, follow along, learn from you, and all that, there's part of the show that I like to do where we talk about what we're loving this week. It can be
Okay.
literally anything: a book, TV show, movie, new food, whatever. What are you loving this week?
Okay, this is probably gonna give me some grief from people, but I'm loving snow days.
Mm,
Yeah, because my kids get to stay home, and then we get to have a random like movie snow day together. So, yeah, ours
yeah,
haven't been snow days lately. They've been negative 20-degree wind chill days because it's been
yeah.
so cold. But
Not
yeah,
as
I'm gonna
fun
go.
to play outside during those
No, they
snow
don't really play
days.
outside during that. It's too cold, but we can
Yeah.
still like have hot cocoa and popcorn and movie. So yeah,
Hmm.
random snow
Nice.
days. I'm gonna go with that.
Nice. We had like a snow day and a half a couple weeks
Yeah.
ago, where it dropped to like 28 or something. It was it
Yeah.
was it was nothing.
Uh-huh.
But here we don't have we don't
Yeah.
have the infrastructure. If there's ice on the road, we're like, I don't know. I guess we'll wait till it thaws.
Hmm.
We don't have snow plows or salt or anything.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we had like 2 days where the kids were home, and I put big projector screen up, and we had
Yeah.
like a movie night or movie day and popcorn and hot chocolate and just like
Hmm.
that kind of fun stuff. Though, yeah, I love those every now and then. If
Right.
it's
Well,
just
yeah.
like a whole week of snow days, I'm like, okay,
Yeah. We
we need,
recently had almost a whole week, and it was day 3, 4, 5 was a little much, but
yeah, yeah. It's
it's
like,
okay.
okay, we need to get back into our routine now. I
Yeah.
have to work. Um,
Uh-huh.
but no, I love that and love snow days, and just we get them very infrequently here, so
Hmm.
it is very very nice whenever we have them.
Yep.
Let's see, I'm loving a show. I know I talked about this for the listeners. I talked about this a few weeks ago, but it was my guests' thing that they were loving. So this
Hmm.
one's mine now, and it's season 2. So we were talking about season 1. Season 2 of Severance came out on Apple TV Plus.
Hmm. Not heard of
Such a
that.
great show. It's a really interesting plot of like kind of follows these people who they have this chip implanted to where they sever their work self from their like day self.
Hmm.
So essentially for you, like you walk into work and then the next thing that you know is you walking out of work and you have no memories of what you did for the last 8 hours.
Okay.
But then
That's
your
interesting.
work self has no memories of what's going on outside the building. Uh,
Oh, that'd be
and then
productive.
yeah, super productive. And then they start asking questions about like, why are we here, what are we doing,
Uh-huh.
what is my outside self like,
Yeah.
and yeah, very interesting. Great score. The music is
Mhm.
great. The writing is fantastic. Ben Stiller directs most of the episodes. But yeah, like Adam Scott, John Turturro, Christopher Walken are all in it. Uh,
Oh.
and it's a
Have
great show.
you seen the show Silo on Apple Plus?
Yes,
That one's really
that's
good too.
that one is also very good. That one, I think the second season just wrapped up.
Is it
Uh,
out yet?
I think so.
I
Um,
We have so many subscriptions. I don't remember which ones we have right now. So it's like, do we have that one? I don't know if I can watch it.
Apple is one of those that I'm like, whenever the shows that I'm interested in come out, I'll
Yeah.
subscribe and then I'll just drop it
Right.
until it's coming back around.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, second season of Silo is out and finished because I did not know it was the finale, and then it just ended and was like, I was like, oh, is the next one coming out on Friday? No, it is not. We are finished.
Oh,
Uh, but Steve Zahn shows up as a character.
okay.
If you know him from like the early 2000s movies and stuff,
I remember the name, but I can't think of his face.
he's
Yeah.
like he was in Daddy Daycare and You've Got Mail. He's got that
Yeah.
voice, like kind of weird kind of dude. Um, but yeah, it was fun. I saw his eyes and heard his voice, and that was it. And I was like,
You knew who it was.
Steve Zahn, what? Because he was one of my favorite people. Um, so that was a fun treat in season 2.
Yeah,
But yeah, check out those. Those are
I
great.
will. Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Well, where can people check out you? Where can they follow your work? Learn from you? Go to conferences that you're speaking at? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my website is Hetler Photography, so it's Hetler. And then my Instagram is at Hetler Photo. I'm going to be a hybrid teaching a breakout class on this very topic, which is like next week, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like a week and a half. So
Yeah.
that will have just happened
Yeah.
for the listeners. If you're watching this live or the replay before, then definitely come out to hybrid.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, I hope you really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
awesome.
And then I think I'm going to be hosting a styled shoot here in Michigan in the late summer, fall for people that want to diversify their portfolio a little bit as well with models that have disabilities. So that's a fun thing that they can do as well.
Yeah, that would be a really great time to escape the heat. If you live in
Yeah,
the
it gets
South,
hot here,
it
but
does. Yeah, it
and
does get
humid,
hot. Yeah, yes, yeah,
but
especially
not like you're hot. No, not Texas hot.
not Texas hot. So it's like a little break,
Yeah,
but still warm enough that you can, wear shorts
breathe.
and breathe. Especially now when you're like -10 right now. You're like, I just need heat.
Yeah, you kind of can't breathe when it's that cold either.
No, no. So okay, well, awesome. That sounds really cool. I've been seeing so many people out of like Grand Rapids area as educators recently. I'm just
Yeah,
like, that's really cool. Like that is a place that I've driven through before,
yeah.
in my travels and stuff around. But like I need to go check it out and like
It's a cool
hang
town.
out
We
in
must
Michigan.
just all be bored in the winter and have time on our hands. So
Must be.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, I will have all of that linked in the show notes for everyone. So definitely go give Kellie a follow and say hey and share about this episode. But yeah, Kellie, thanks so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed chatting today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Have a good week.
Thanks. You too. Thank you for listening to another conversation on the episode. How do I do this? How is the exit? How's the outro? Don't I normally say, thank you for listening to another episode? That's it. Not another conversation. Okay. Got it. Let's take it from the top. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Wisdom and the Tangents podcast. As always, you can check out all the show notes at podcast.allheartphoto.com. You can watch these episodes, see our faces on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you know what's up. How's it going? You can see my face. And what's on my bookshelf back here? I have a skeleton and rolls of film that I need to send in to get developed. Go follow the show on Instagram. Follow Kellie. We're at Witpod, WITT.pod, and Kellie is at Hetler Photo, HETLER Photo. You should know how to spell that one. But yeah, give us a follow. Let us know what you thought about the show, and we always love hearing back from y'all. Share this with a friend, and we will see you next week for another episode. Bye, y'all.